My op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com, my daily take, is titled, "The Most Dangerous Weapon Ever Aimed at America Isn't a Missile." So what is it? Well, it gets right down to this. If a government can convince you, or a political party, can convince a large enough portion of the country that reality isn't what we think it is, that lies are truth, that up is down, that black is white. I mean, pick your cliche or metaphor. If a government can convince you of that, they can do pretty much anything. And this has been the essence of this 50-year-long campaign by right-wing billionaires in the United States to convince Americans uniquely that, that up is down. That, these are not small things, by the way. What they're trying to do is destroy the concept of shared truth. There was an interesting Pew study that was just published. Robert Reich was writing about it yesterday, that found that the majority of Americans think that their fellow Americans are bad people. The majority of Canadians think their fellow Canadians are wonderful people. What accounts for the difference? The GOP, basically. The Republican Party, since Reagan, has been telling us that up is down. And now you got Trump saying that, if you can convince people of lies, you can get away with anything. You can bomb a school full of little girls and blame the victims. Trump just did that. Oh, yeah, we think Iran killed them. You can try and rig an election, and when you lose, you can call it stolen from you. You can watch millions die from COVID and then claim that the virus is just going to disappear. Just go back to work. You can claim tax cuts for billionaires will help out average working class people. You can say that increasing the level of poison in our air or the amount of glyphosate of Roundup on our crops is actually going to make America healthy again. You can argue that destroying unions will increase working people's standard of living. You can claim that taking away their health care encourages individual initiative and independence. You get how this works? These right-wing billionaires who have been on this crusade since the Reagan administration. I mean, you could argue it started in 1971 with the Powell memo. Lewis Powell in 71 wrote this memo to Eugene Sindor, his next-door neighbor and friend, who was the head of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce at the time, and cited Ralph Nader and said, Ralph Nader is essentially the leading edge of the communist takeover of America. It's going to destroy American free enterprise. And so we've got to take over the schools, we've got to take over the colleges, we've got to take over the churches or bring them into the fold, we've got to take over the judiciary, we've got to take over Congress, we've got to take over the newspaper and the media and radio and television. We've got to fill basically every slot in American society with right-wing voices convincing people that taxing billionaires to pay for all this social welfare stuff is a bad idea. Because these billionaires thought that's socialism, and they hate socialism. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want to have taxes. So what did they do? Well, they started in the 1970s think tanks funded to produce alternative academic research that would always reach the right conclusions. These think tanks are telling us that climate change is a hoax, that tax cuts on billionaires trickle down to average working people, that COVID vaccines are dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. Conservative media was built from the ground up, 1,500 AM talk stations, Fox so-called news, right-wing takeover of social media, all to create an ecosystem where Republican voters never have to confront uncomfortable facts. Public schools and civics classes were defunded and attacked because uneducated citizenry asked too many questions. Local newspapers, the institutions that typically hold local power to account, gutted, starved out of existence. Charles and David Koch alone spent hundreds of millions of dollars seeding distrust in climate science and government, and the very idea that collective action through government can produce the solution to collective problems. And they were just the tip of a massive iceberg. This wasn't an accident. This was a strategy. And that strategy had basically one ultimate goal: to create a population of Americans who were so skeptical of our institutions, so distrustful of expertise, so certain that everyone is lying all the time, that they'd be willing to believe anything. Donald Trump didn't create these people. I think we make a mistake by constantly pointing at Trump, because this is something that is institutional within the Republican Party. These people, these right-wing billionaires, have taken over the Republican Party. They've bought it with help from 5 right-wingers on the U.S. Supreme Court. And that means that removing Trump from power, or when Trump leaves office, one way or the other, the problem's not going to go away. You're still stuck with the right-wing billionaires, the right-wing media, and all the lies. I mean, this has been working really well, this dishonesty, lies, as a governing strategy. It has worked for Trump the same way it worked for Mussolini, for Hitler, for Putin, for Orban. He told people that Obama was a secret Kenyan. Millions of people still believe that. He told people 3 million illegal ballots were cast against him in 2016. Millions of people believed that. He told people COVID would disappear. One day, like a miracle, it'll just go away. Over 500,000 Americans are dead because of that lie. And then he told the biggest lie of all that almost ended our democracy, that the election of 2020 was stolen from him. And again, 70, 80% of Republicans to this day believe that lie. After 60-plus lawsuits, it's been thrown out by every court, including the Supreme Court. Nevertheless, he lied about it anyway, and he continues to lie about it. So this is the critical thing that I think it's so important that we all understand, is that democracy isn't our Constitution or some building someplace or the government. Democracy is a shared understanding of reality. And that shared understanding of reality has been under attack by the right, by these right-wing billionaires, by the right-wing media that they've built, by the right-wing think tanks that they've funded, and by the right-wing politicians that they have bought and that they have brought into power for 50 years now. And we are seeing the results of it today. And that result is very, very ugly. We've been lied into a war in Iran. We were lied into a war with Iraq. Half of America can't do, 60% of America can't deal with a $400 expense. We're hanging on by our teeth here because of these right-wing lies. 50 years of these right-wing lies and the right-wing media infrastructure and the right-wing billionaires who support them.